Welcome to On the Docket, the weekly recap of crime in court in and around the state of Michigan. I'm Cali Lichter, and I'm bringing you deeper into the cases that gripped our area this week. Starting with the officer-involved shooting death of Eddie Deans Jr., a man who police say may have been suffering a mental health crisis, but also say there was an escalation of violence that was getting out of control. And then we go to Kentwood, where short but compelling video helped police officers and detectives link one man to two separate serious crimes, including attempted kidnapping. We go deeper into the docks. All of that and more is on the docket. On May 30th, Grand Rapids police officers were called to a house on Alpine Avenue Northwest for a domestic situation where a mom said her son was threatening others and himself with a knife. What followed was an alleged escalation of violence, a canine stabbing, and ultimately the suspect losing his life. GRPD released the body camera footage of the shooting on June 3rd. The interim police chief said the release came to remain transparent and prevent false narratives. But before we get into things, GRPD says as the case is investigated by Michigan State Police, which is protocol, things may change in the narrative. They also say this video isn't capturing what is seen in the officer's eyes. Now let's take a look at the video and how body camera footage showed a domestic situation turn into a fatal officer-involved shooting. Starting with the actual call itself. Just past 1, officers were called to the house on Alpine Avenue Northwest for that man who was armed with a knife and was threatening to kill his family members and himself. The first of the videos show the man, now identified as Eddie Deans Jr., throwing a lit Molotov cocktail at officers. It did set the squad car on fire, but Interim Chief Joseph Trigg says they were able to quickly extinguish it.
17-13. I think that's the one just walked out the back. He looked at me in the alley and then walked back towards the house. Hey! Hey! Go back!
Why is vehicle on fire?
That video is from the back alleyway. Deans ran back into the house after that, confirmed through probate court documents to be the house where he lived, and then reappeared on the front porch. Officers tried to use a less lethal projectile to try and get the situation under control. Interim Chief Trigg says, imagine a racquetball cut in half.
Good hit.
As officers were trying to negotiate with Deans, he left the house and attempted an armed carjacking. It was believed he was still armed with at least one knife at that point. You can hear in this footage the screams as there's the attempted takeover. And after that, as we see this alleged escalation of violence, he attempts to break into a house, also unsuccessfully. Now we've moved from Alpine Avenue to the west to a house off of Whitcomb Avenue. And one of the final tactics we see here is the deployment of a canine, specifically GRPD Canine Digo. Deans allegedly stabbed Canine Digo multiple times. We have photos of Canine Digo afterward. I'll spoil it. Canine Digo is expected to make a full recovery, and they will assess if he can get back to working. Then comes this conclusion of sorts, which is all sort of happening at the same time. You have Canine Digo stabbed, officers firing more less lethal rounds, and then Deans allegedly charging at officers with a knife, which led to Deans being shot and killed in the backyard of the house on Whitcomb Avenue. Again, a lot going on here. Let's roll the clip.
Clear, clear. Right there! Josh in! Foot! Stab the dog! Off! 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 Right there! Hands up! Hands up! Back him! Back him! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Get down! Put your hands up! Put your... Go! Right there! Go! Get down! Off! Get ready up, you come. Hey, be covered! Be covered! Cover! He's stand! Move it out! My car! Where's your car? Go to channel 1.
And one more video, I promise, but I spoke to a neighbor who actually got the shots on camera from his house across the street. He wanted to film the police presence outside, but didn't know it would escalate to something like this.
What the is happening, man? I just came outside to clean. What the? Oh my god. Okay, they're telling everybody to get in their house and lock the door. What the is happening? Oh my god. Holy I'm safe, don't worry. This is insane. I just moved here.
I got my hands on the probate court docs for Deans, and you may be asking, why was he in probate court? Deans was actually on parole for a murder he committed when he was a teenager back in 1995. He was serving 12 to 50 years in prison for attacking and killing a woman who owed him money for drugs, according to court records. He served about half of that maximum sentence before being discharged to his mother's house. A condition of that release was to be provided medication. He was taking medication for a lot of different mental health issues, according to those records. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder. The docs also mentioned depression and schizoaffective disorder. While in prison, he had a history of suicide attempts and self-injurious behavior. The docs also detailed frequent hunger strikes, hypersexuality, and medication and treatment noncompliance. One professional wrote in a clinical certificate, quote, his reasoning and judgment abilities are seriously impaired, end quote, and that he had a history of physical aggression in prison. He had over 150 misconduct tickets while incarcerated, including ones for assault and battery towards staff and other prisoners. Last summer, there's a document that details refusal to work with his Network 180 case manager. We do not know if he was taking medication at the time of this incident. There are a lot more details in those probate docs. You can find those on our website, 13onyourside.com. And this whole entire situation begs the question, was this a mental health crisis? And we didn't really get a clear answer on it. The case is still in its early stages. We saw chatter online about more being done in this case, how they could have handled it differently because of the mental health aspect. But here's part of what Interim Chief Trigg had to say during the press conference.
I do not know the complete history. I do know, obviously, the individual was on parole for homicide. I think that's well stated in the news. But that's the extent of my history of him. I do know there was mention later that of some mental health issues that he was possibly going through, but I haven't verified any of that information. It's just from the family. At the time the officers are getting the information, they're getting that he's threatened to kill his family. He's threatening to kill himself. So I'm sure they're drawing conclusions that obviously there could be a mental health component to this, but at that point they're focused on their job. Step one, let's try to contain the subject to this house to protect him from his family, protect the neighbors, and all these other measures to try to get in place before we can think about getting a mental health therapist, get our negotiators and all that. We have to isolate the incident first, and we just didn't have the time because he bolted out the front door. So, we all know mental health is a serious issue, and there's a lot of resources that are available. Then there's a lot of people that don't get the resources they need, I imagine. Our men and women want any tool they can to help them do their job better, but they're not doctors, they're not therapists, but they're pretty amazing people that are compassionate about the citizens of this city, and they're trying to resolve things as peacefully as possible. No officer wants to go through this, whether it's a justified shooting or not. You're going to go through a lot of things, when you pull that trigger, and they know that. And that the fact that they still go out there willing to do it is commendable. But yes, across the country, mental health is a serious issue, and all we can try to do is, equip our men, equip our agency with any type of added knowledge that help us do our job better.
One of the last things in the case, and one of the last things we expected, was for PETA to chime in on this. The Animal Liberation Organization penned a letter to Interim Chief Trigg on June 2nd, calling for GRPD canines to be replaced with, quote, state-of-the-art policing technology, such as tactical robots, drones, and/or portable mass spectrometers. This is in response to Canine Digo getting stabbed. They say a growing number of law enforcement departments across the country use tactical robots, which can be deployed in situations that could result in serious injury or death to both canine and human officers. A Grand Rapids Police Department spokesperson confirmed they have received that letter from PETA. You can read that for yourself right now on our website. And where do we go from here? Per GRPD policy, the case is investigated by the Michigan State Police. They conduct their investigation and hand it over to the Kent County prosecutor to decide if there are any charges that need to be pressed. The officer is on administrative leave as per standard procedure. And next on the docket, we're looking into a case out of Kentwood, where Kentwood police say they used video to connect a suspect to two separate serious crimes. What the videos and court documents show is next on the docket. A shocking attack caught on camera in Kentwood is now revealing new details about what police say was a random violent spree. Originally released as video of a man attacking a 14-year-old girl as she walked home from school. Police say she fought him off and may have saved her own life. Now investigators say that the same suspect had already targeted a 66-year-old woman just minutes earlier. The man accused in both attacks has been arrested. Our Peter Elliott has more on the investigation and a warning from police.
The footage isn't long, but it is shocking.
A small video can get the attention.
Kentwood Police Department released it for exactly that reason.
And I want to know if there's any other victims out there.
It shows a 14-year-old girl walking home from school, attacked by a man who also tried to kidnap her. It happened back on May 12th in Kentwood along Rondo Street.
She was approached by a dark-colored SUV, stopped in the roadway, jumped out, and began attacking her.
Captain Tim Warenga with Kentwood PD says they didn't know each other.
This was a very random situation.
The girl, who was not injured, had his blood on her body.
She saved her own life that day.
The perpetrator, identified as 29-year-old John Moore. Less than an hour earlier, he attacked someone else a mile northwest on Poinsettia Avenue.
He had somebody who was out looking for this type of behavior.
Police say Moore approached a 66-year-old woman who was gardening near her mailbox. He engaged her in a lengthy conversation. When they finished talking, she says he pulled her tightly into him and tried to kiss her several times.
She was able to get him to leave. He then took off in his vehicle and left the scene.
The woman called police the next day. The matching vehicle and witness descriptions led investigators to arrest Moore within 24 hours of the reports. He was charged with assault and battery and unlawful imprisonment.
The world is a great place, but every once in a while there's a scary moment, and we need to be aware of that. And we need to have conversations with our family members and make sure that they're understanding of how they should handle something if they're brought into that type of situation.
Now, there is a lot of information contained in probable cause documents or law enforcement's narrative of what happened that day. Let's start with the assault PC. And everything I say is alleged and is included in the probable cause. On May 12th, but reported the next day, the victim came forward to say that she was outside gardening when a man identified as John Moore drove up in his car, got out, and struck up a conversation with her about how his brother recently died. The victim said she had a long conversation with Moore about it, and when they were done talking, she held out her hand for a shake. But when she did this, the victim told police Moore pulled her into him, hugged her tightly around the waist, and kissed her one time by her neck at the base of her chin. The victim broke free from Moore, and Moore then left in his car. She told police Moore's description, including a tattoo that said 90s baby. Detectives were able to identify him based on that tattoo, as well as him being a person of interest in the attempted kidnapping that occurred less than an hour later. While in custody, it's alleged that Moore admitted to seeing the victim working in her yard and that he stopped to talk to her because she seemed nice. He said he just wanted someone to talk to, and she comforted him, and they had good conversation. He said he hugged her, but denied anything else. Now, additional details from another probable cause say that Moore suggested they date, but the victim refused. She said that he asked why. He then allegedly asked to use her bathroom, which she refused, and he looked visibly upset and told her he needed to wash his hands. The victim got wipes from her car and denied him access to her house and told him to go to the gas station. She said he returned about 5 to 10 minutes later, but stayed in his car. He once again asked to use her home because the gas station wouldn't let him use the bathroom. The victim refused once again, and Moore allegedly looked visibly upset. Moore was allegedly documented on flock camera twice in a short amount of time in and around that area. Now let's get into the attempted kidnapping probable cause. And remember, alleged, and everything comes from this doc. And this allegedly occurred an hour after the incident with the first victim. Now it's alleged that Moore got out of his car and ran up to a 14-year-old girl, grabbed a hold of her and said, quote, "I got you." The girl resisted. They both fell to the ground and the girl started to fight back. Moore let go. Moore then took off in a black Chevy Trailblazer. The victim did have physical injuries as well as blood on her face and clothes that investigators determined came from Moore. She told detectives that she felt as though Moore was going to take her and put her in his car. She did not know Moore. A neighbor witnessed this happen allegedly and said he saw the black Chevy Trailblazer pull up on the wrong side of the street. He then heard yelling and saw Moore and the girl fighting on the ground. He initially believed that this was a domestic incident. Eventually, after a physical altercation, he heard Moore back away and say, quote, "You got me," and then drive off. The docs go on to say that a home security camera showed Moore drive up, quickly exit the car, then run towards the victim who was walking on the sidewalk. Now that's the security camera footage that we've been seeing throughout this episode. The camera stopped as Moore ran up to the victim with arms outstretched. A flock camera got his car on camera. They traced it back to an address where they say Moore lived. The docs say Moore is a registered sex offender and he has convictions of criminal sexual conduct, fourth degree, force or coercion, and capturing or distributing an image of an unclothed person. These are out of 17th Circuit Court in Kent County. The rest of the page details from the incident are from the first victim on this first page. Now, skipping ahead, the docs say the same tattoo appears in a booking photo from the Kent County Jail. Detectives also knew that Moore's brother and nephew recently died in separate incidents. Additional details to the previous probable cause, detectives say once in custody, Moore said he had only gone to work on May 12th, but then Moore admitted to being at both incidents. He said he only hugged the first victim and felt like they were having a good interaction. He allegedly said the second interaction with the 14-year-old was different and more like, quote, venting. He claimed the incident was a blur and he only remembers regaining his sense and he was covered in blood. He said he apologized to the 14-year-old and said that she was going to get her brothers. He claimed the blood was coming from his nose. He allegedly admitted he was responsible and he did not know why he did it to the 14-year-old. Moore is still lodged in the Kent County Jail. His cases are for assault and battery and unlawful imprisonment. They're still pending in Kentwood District Court, but he does have 2 probation violation cases for those charges that landed him on the sex offender registry. They're open in 17th Circuit Court, those probation charges. And thanks for joining me on this episode of On the Docket on 13+. We have new episodes releasing every week, taking you into the courtroom for the latest deep dives and updates on crime in and around West Michigan. In the meantime, we'll bring you the latest update on both crime and court, on air and online at 13onyourside.com. When breaking news affects you and your community, we stream live on our streaming app with what you need to know right when you need to know. We'll see you next time with updates on What's on the Docket.